You apologize for being too good. It happened in a meeting you barely remember. A small softening, a polite hedge, and the room registered it instantly. What you're experiencing has a name. It's called preemptive shrinking, and ambitious professionals do it without realizing the cost. In the next 12 minutes, I'm going to decode exactly how one polite habit makes high performers easy to sideline and how the pattern compounds. The first signal is invisible to most people. You start prefacing your wins with apologies, qualifiers, or self-deprecating jokes that flatten your authority. But the real damage happens at the second stage, where your manager quietly recategorizes you from threat to convenience. Picture this. Tuesday morning, you deliver a sharp analysis that reframes the entire project. Then you end with, "But I might be missing something." That sentence didn't sound humble. It sounded movable, and movable people get moved. This is the polite mistake. It's the reflex to soften your competence so the room stays comfortable around you. You were taught this was professional. It isn't. It's a tax you pay for ambition, charged in invisible currency. Here's the quiet part. Rooms don't reward shrinking, they register it, and then they assign you accordingly. When you constantly downplay your work, you're not signaling humility, you're signaling availability for whatever role someone else has in mind. This is where the pattern reveals itself. The professionals who get sidelined are rarely the loud ones. They're the polished, helpful, slightly apologetic ones. Think about the last calibration meeting you weren't in. Someone in that room described you. Their description used your own framing. If you said your work was a team effort, they said it was the team's. If you said it was lucky timing, they said it was timing. Your modesty became their evidence. That's the mechanism. You handed them language they used against your trajectory. Here's what makes this worse. The more capable you are, the more this habit penalizes you. Average performers can afford modesty because expectations are already low. High performers cannot. Your modesty contradicts your output, and rooms resolve contradictions by lowering the output rating. The pattern accelerates from here. Your manager starts speaking about you in conditional language. She's strong, but I'm not sure she wants stretch work. That sentence was never about your wanting. It was about how you described yourself the last 6 months. They simply mirrored you back. What looked like a personality read was actually a transcript. They were quoting you. This is the layer most professionals miss. Workplaces do not assess you. They assess the version of you that you broadcast. If you broadcast smallness, they will believe you. Not because they're naive, because you're the primary source. Here's a concrete example. A senior engineer leads a critical migration. In the recap meeting, she says, "Honestly, most of this was just following the playbook." By Q3 planning, she's not on the architecture committee. Not because of skill, because she described herself out of the seat. The polite mistake isn't a single sentence, it's a posture. And posture is what rooms remember. Watch what happens next. You start getting invited to fewer strategic conversations. The invitations that remain are operational. You assume it's bandwidth. It isn't. It's categorization. You've been moved from shaper to executor in someone's mental org chart. Executors are valuable. Executors are also replaceable, and executors rarely get the next title. This is where it gets sharper. The polite mistake doesn't just affect promotions, it affects protection. When reorgs happen, the people protected are the ones leadership has emotional and strategic conviction about. Conviction is built through how you describe yourself repeatedly, over time. If your self-description is hedged, leadership's conviction may be hedged, and hedged conviction does not survive a budget conversation. Drop a comment if you've ever softened a win in a meeting and felt the room shift slightly afterward. I want to know what phrase you used. If this analysis is landing, subscribe. This channel decodes the systems most professionals only understand after the damage is done. Now let's go deeper, because the polite mistake has a second layer most people never see. The second layer is permission. When you minimize your work, you give others permission to claim adjacency to it. Picture this. You built a deck. In the readout, you say, "We pulled this together quickly." A peer nods and adds, "Yeah, we worked on it last week." You just licensed the "we." And in the recording, in the notes, in someone's memory, that "we" becomes the official version. Your humility became their attribution. This is how credit migrates without anyone technically lying. Here's what to watch for. Listen to how you open status updates. If you start with just or only or kind of, you're pre-discounting your contribution. Those three words are the most expensive words in corporate English. They cost ambitious professionals promotions every cycle. The deeper problem is that you can't take them back. Once a room categorizes you as modest, every future signal gets filtered through that lens. A bold move from a modest person reads as out of character. A bold move from a confident person reads as consistent. Same move, different verdict. This is the part nobody warns you about. Authority is not granted by output. Authority is granted by how output is framed at the moment of delivery. You can deliver elite work and still be sidelined if your framing trains people to underweight it. Here's the tactical shift. Stop apologizing for clarity. Stop softening conclusions. Stop adding, but I could be wrong to statements you actually believe. When you say, I think we should pivot, and then add, but obviously it's your call, you didn't sound respectful. You sounded retractable. Try this instead. Based on the data, I'd recommend pivoting. Happy to walk through the reasoning. That's not arrogance. That's load-bearing language. Notice the difference. The first sentence invites override. The second sentence invites discussion. Rooms respond accordingly. Here's another tactical phrase. When someone says your work was lucky, don't agree to be polite. Say there was some timing involved, but the framework was deliberate. That single sentence reclaims authorship without seeming defensive. It rewrites the record in real time. What you thought was random praise patterns is actually a scheduled negotiation. Every meeting is a quiet vote on how much weight your name should carry next quarter. You are either accumulating weight or shedding it. There is no neutral. The polite mistake is the slow shed. This is where the consequence example matters. A director on track for VP softens her language for 2 years to seem collaborative. When the VP role opens, leadership says, "She's great, but I'm not sure she's ready to lead." The reasoning is built from her own sentences. She wasn't passed over. She was quoted. Unknowingly promotion went to someone whose self-description matched the seat. Here's the quiet part again. Promotion decisions are rarely about capability. They're about whether the room can picture you in the role. And the room pictures you using the language you've given them. If your language has been small, the picture will be small. If this sounds like your last review cycle, you're not paranoid. You're paying attention. So what changes? Not your personality, not your values, just the framing layer between your work and the room. Start with the smallest fix. Remove 3 words from your vocabulary this week: just, only, and kind of. Then remove 2 phrases: I might be wrong, and this is probably obvious. If you actually might be wrong, the room will figure that out. You don't need to pre-announce it. Replace them with neutral declaratives. Here's what I'm seeing. Here's the recommendation. Here's the trade-off. These are not aggressive sentences. They're load-bearing. They hold weight without demanding it. Use another scripted phrase worth keeping. When a peer claims adjacency to your work, say, happy to walk through what I built and where you contributed. That sentence is not hostile, it's precise, and precision is what rooms remember when credit gets allocated later. Watch how this changes your trajectory. Within a few months, your manager's language about you will start to shift. Not because you changed your work, because you stopped editing it down before it reached them. The polite mistake is a habit that protected you in school, in early career, in environments where being agreeable was the path. Those environments are gone. In rooms where seats are scarce, agreeable becomes invisible, and invisible becomes movable, and movable becomes the name on the reorg slide. Here's the final reveal. You were never sidelined for being too much. You were sidelined for describing yourself as less than you were. The room didn't lower you. You lowered yourself, and the room simply accepted the offer. This is the closing example. A high performer realizes the pattern. She stops softening. She stops apologizing for clarity. 6 months later, she's in the strategic conversation she was previously excluded from. Same skills, different framing, different category. The work didn't change, the transcript did, and the transcript is what rooms run on. So here's the reflection. Listen to yourself this week. Count the hedges, count the qualifiers, count the apologies for being capable. Drop a comment with the phrase you catch yourself using most. Naming it is the first move. If this decoded something you felt but couldn't articulate, subscribe. This channel is built for professionals who want to see the system before it sees them. You don't need to be louder. You need to stop translating your competence into something smaller for other people's comfort. Because the room was never going to give you the seat. It was going to give you the seat your language earned. Speak like the seat is already yours, quietly, precisely, without apology. That's not arrogance. That's accuracy. And accuracy is the only thing that survives a calibration meeting. The polite mistake is optional. Stop paying a tax. Nobody asked you to pay.